The night. My father blamed my son for my brother's crime. I was standing in the dimly lit hallway of my childhood home, clutching my 8-year-old son's hand so tightly my knuckles were entirely white. My father sat in his heavy leather armchair, completely shrouded in the shadows of the living room. "One of you," he growled, his voice echoing off the hardwood floors, "is a liar and a thief." He wasn't looking at me. He wasn't looking at my older brother, David, who was nervously pacing by the fireplace. No, my father's cold, calculating eyes were locked entirely on my son. For 32 years, I had been the designated scapegoat of this family. If a window was broken, I paid for it. If a car got scratched, I was grounded for a month. My brother David, he was the absolute, undeniable golden child, the one who could do absolutely no wrong. When I was 14, David crashed Dad's prized vintage Mustang into a telephone pole while he was completely drunk. He dragged me out of bed, shoved me into the driver's seat, and ran away into the woods. When my dad found me, he didn't even ask questions. He just screamed. I took the blame, because in our family, the truth was never as important as protecting David's perfect reputation. But now, I was a mother myself, and I was never, ever going to let history repeat itself. $10,000, my dad said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, stolen from the floor safe in my study. And little Leo was the only one playing in there this afternoon. My son Leo looked up at me, his bottom lip trembling violently. "Mommy," he whispered, "I swear I didn't even see a safe. I was just playing with my toy trucks." "Don't lie to me, boy," my dad suddenly shouted, slamming his fist onto the side table. My brother David stopped pacing. He let out a long, theatrical sigh. "Listen, kid," David said, putting on his best, fake sympathetic voice. "Just tell Grandpa where you hid the money. We won't be mad. Kids make mistakes. Right, Dad?" I felt the blood in my veins run completely ice cold. The sheer audacity. The absolute, disgusting arrogance. They had scripted this entire intervention before we even arrived for Sunday dinner. They had built a courtroom in the living room and appointed my innocent little boy as the sacrificial lamb. I took a slow, deep breath and stepped directly between my son and my father. "Leo didn't take your money," I said, my voice eerily calm and steady. "Oh, come on," my dad scoffed, rolling his eyes. "You are blinded by love. The boy is clearly a thief, just like you were at his age. It is in his blood." "No," I replied, pulling my cell phone out of my purse. "He didn't take it because at 2:15 this afternoon when the safe was emptied, Leo was in the backyard, helping his dad plant tomato seeds." My dad frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I checked the timestamp on the doorbell camera," I said smoothly. "Leo and my husband went outside at 1 o'clock. And they didn't come back inside until 3. The room suddenly went dead silent. "However," I continued, turning to look directly at my older brother, "the camera overlooking the driveway caught something extremely interesting." I held the phone up, turning the screen so my father could see it clearly. It caught David, sneaking out of the side door at 2:30, carrying a thick manila envelope that looked incredibly heavy. David took a huge step backward, his hands shaking violently. That was just work documents," he stammered, his voice cracking. "Really?" I asked, because I also checked the dashcam footage from my car parked across the street, and it perfectly captured David, handing that exact same envelope to a very scary-looking man in a black SUV. My father slowly stood up from his leather chair. He looked at the phone, then he looked at David. "You owe some bad people a lot of money, don't you, Dave?" I asked, stepping closer to him. "Your little gambling problem finally caught up with you, and you thought you could just steal from your own father and blame it on an 8-year-old boy." David looked at our father, panic flooding his eyes. Dad, please. They were going to hurt me. I had no choice. I waited for the explosion. I waited for my father to unleash 30 years of built-up rage onto his golden child. But instead, my father let out a heavy sigh and sank back into his chair. "All right," my dad muttered quietly. "We will handle this privately. David, you will pay me back in installments." I literally could not believe my ears. When I was accused of scratching a car, I was treated like a violent criminal. But when David stole $10,000 and tried to frame a child, he got a quiet chat and a payment plan. It made me sick to my stomach. I grabbed my son's hand and walked toward the front door. "Where are you going?" my dad called out. "We aren't finished here. Dinner is in 20 minutes. I stopped in the doorway and slowly turned around. "Yes, we are," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. "We are entirely finished. For 30 years, I took your abuse because I thought I deserved it, but I will never let you poison my son." "Don't be dramatic," my father yelled. "You walk out that door and you are done in this family." I looked at the two of them, the pathetic, toxic men who had haunted my entire life. "That," I whispered, a dark smile creeping across my face, "is exactly the point." I walked out of that house into the cool evening air. As I strapped my son into his car seat, he looked at me, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Mommy," he sniffled. "Did they really think I did it?" "Nobody," I said, wiping away his tears. "They always knew you were innocent, but they needed a victim." I started the engine, leaving the dark house in the rearview mirror forever. "But don't worry," I promised, putting the car in drive. "They will never, ever hurt us again. If you believe protecting your child comes before everything, subscribe for more real stories like this.